Dave, if I could say one thing at this moment, I think that thing would be...
Hey, that was a pretty good rooster.
Thank you very much. Well, I've had lots of time to practice. My studio is in a very working class, kind of meat and potatoes neighborhood here in Philadelphia. And it's in Philadelphia. It's not like one of those guys that tell you they're from Philadelphia, but they're from the suburbs. You know, this is in Philadelphia.
City. Yeah. It's city.
So it's very much an urban landscape, row houses, you know, which is, you know, houses that are attached to each other on the sides. And for the last week and a half, because I've had the windows open and I haven't put my air conditioner unit in, I hear a rooster. And that little son of a gun he's so full of piss and vinegar, he's out there crowing the entire day long. It's just the most, I gotta be honest with you, there's something about it that makes me happy as can be.
Well, because in a city environment, not a sound that you expect. It's like hearing a horse. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So I know that Portland, Oregon, and Salt Lake City, Utah are sort of famous for people keeping chickens. Like, there's a huge culture of like, I'm going to build my own chicken coop. I'm going to keep some chickens. I'm going to have my own eggs. Does Philadelphia have a culture of because Los Angeles does not, although I have a story to that, but LA does not.
My wife used to joke about raising chickens, and I think there was a statute that you could raise chickens in the city until recently. I think they've gotten rid of that because the other side of that whole thing is chickens are very dirty. There's a lot of refuse that you have to deal with if you're gonna raise chickens.
Right.
And so I think that might have caused problems, you know, with vermin and so forth.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was always something we always said. Now our house doesn't have a backyard per se. But that was also always something Carolyn always used to threaten to do if we did have a backyard, was to raise chickens.
Well, can I be city boy ignorant for a minute? The economics of keeping a chicken is like you pay pennies on the dollars for the feed, and then the eggs are worth, you know, in today's economy, the eggs are worth gold.
Gold, yeah.
But like that's the basic economics of a chicken, right? Is that you feed them what the equivalent of nothing, like the feed costs nothing, and then and you get those 40-pound bags of burlap feed.
Yeah. And then like, and just exposing my ignorance, my assumption is at a certain point, you know, as you're bringing the new chickens in and getting the old chickens out, you know, you process them and you've got chicken. So you're either eating eggs or you're eating chicken.
And I guess you're rotating them out. Yeah. Well, Margaret, you've had a good run. You know, and then you twist the old neck. I gotta say, the one time I ever saw my uncle who has a farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, I saw him twist a chicken's neck, and he was so casual about it, but to me it was horrifying as a child.
Yeah, like turning a light switch off.
Yeah, he just did a quick grunt, you know, in the way that you would like open up a Coke 1 liter bottle or something. Then it was all over for Margaret. But okay, so I got to tell you one thing. So having said that LA is not a city that raises chickens, we have a loose chicken on our street, and I don't know where it's coming from.
Oh my gosh.
I texted all my neighbors, and I was like, hey, there's a chicken in my backyard. And one of them was like, congratulations. I was like, thanks, Leo. All right. No, I don't need the jokes right now. Yeah. But I was like, hey, who does this belong to? I'll try to catch the chicken and bring it back to you. And they're like, oh, no, it's been loose in the neighborhood for like the last 4 months. We first saw it over on Blankety Blank Street, and now it's been working its way over. I don't know what to do. I mean, it's fine that there's a chicken. It's not a problem, but it a little bit scares the hell out of you when you look out your back deck and there's just a chicken staring at you. Because it's not an animal that I'm used to. I'm used to possums and raccoons and occasionally a coyote or something.
The occasional hot tub rat.
Oh my God.
You know what? Let the chicken in. They might just make short work of any rodents you've got around there.
Well, I would, except the little son of a bitch is shitting on everything.
Oh, is he?
And it makes my dog so angry. Like, if my dog sees the chicken in the backyard, I've never seen a 10-pound dachshund run faster. They get even lower. It's the weirdest kind of like
aerodynamics.
If you've ever seen a lowrider car that goes along the street at like 1 inch, when a dachshund is sprinting at an animal, they produce like this power stance where the legs are way splayed out, and he gets... Anyway, my dog is so angry. There's chicken shit everywhere in my backyard.
Oh my God.
However, the bird is beautiful. It's a beautiful chicken. So anyway, that's my long story short about chickens in my neighborhood. And on that note, my friends, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show exclusively about chicken raising and making comics.
And the show about Sarah Boynton's book, Philadelphia Chickens, and making a living from comics. That was a Sarah Boynton book, by the way, Philadelphia Chickens.
Book? Wow.
It was an album. She did an album full of songs, and it was called Philadelphia Chickens.
Wow.
I knew that from when my kids were small.
And I'm Dave Kelly, cartoonist of Drive in Sheldon and co-director of the documentary Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So, Dave, let's talk comics.
I mean, it is a pleasant sound. I'll be honest, Brad, we are too much in the city on average. Yeah. You know, it's nice to have a little bit of life around you. Like, as much as I don't like the rats, in my backyard, I see squirrels.
Where's the sentence going?
I see
as
squirrels.
Much as I don't like the rats.
No, I don't like rats, but I see squirrels. I see Dutch rats. I see possums. I see raccoons. I now see chickens. I see like 30 types of birds. And I got to tell you, it does make your day better to see wildlife in some respects. So anyway, we have a big show for everybody today. And we've got two big topics and a lot of updates coming in mid-show. Yeah. But Brad, the first one that I want to read to you is a question coming in from patreon.com/comiclab, which everybody is jumping into.
Oh, yeah.
For the over 400 episodes, now, of pro tips.
I think this is episode 380 something. We're closing in on 390. And of course, with commensurate pro tips on the other side, we're getting right up there towards 800 episodes.
Yeah. So, bonkers amount of new episodes you have never heard before when you join us over at patreon.com/comiclab. Anyway, delightful Patrick writes in and says, there are all kinds of SEO practices, and most of us probably have Yoast at the very least. I'm not advocating for a reliance on SEO/search for audience, because that is folly. But what do you see as the best SEO practices for comics in 2025? Yeah. If we give 99% of our time to comic creation, social 4 C's, and Brad, what are the social 4 C's?
That's content creation, commercial, curation, and the 4th C is kindness.
I think you just said 5, though. Didn't you just say 5? You said
content
creation, curation.
Oh, no. Content creation is one word.
I see what happened. Okay. Anyway, so to finish Patrick's question, if we give 99% of our time to content creation, what should we give that 1% of SEO focus to? Brad Geiger, I turn the question to you.
Yeah, I'm actually quietly thrilled to get this question, because we've been banging the drum on having a website and owning and controlling your own work and all of those issues that we've been really preaching about for a long time. And we're starting to get more and more questions to the show showing that people are taking us seriously. And it's very rare for me to be taken seriously. It's a new feeling for me. So I'm really excited to get a question about SEO. The problem is, I've always been a little standoffish to SEO, search engine optimization. It's never been a strong suit. So I actually had to go out and do a little bit of research for this one. And it's something I'll probably work into
Look at Mr. Show Prep over here.
Yeah, wait till you see. Look
at Mr. Steal Your Girl over here doing show prep and research.
I've been very easily distracted for the past couple of weeks. And it's like, instead of dealing with what I'm supposed to deal with, I'll just go and research this other thing. And that sounds like fun. So, I looked into a little bit, and because what Patrick didn't say and implied in his question is that search engine optimization is tough for a webcomics website because most search engine optimization happens with words. And of course, our main content is images.
Right.
So we've got to go a little bit extra when it comes down to SEO for our stuff. We've got to go the extra mile. So I've come up with a list of tips. Some of them are very, very simple. And some of them actually we've talked about before. And it's a matter of the first one that I'm going to point out absolutely was something we've talked about in the past. And that is a transcript that you post in the blog under your comic is a really good first start. and it serves double duty. If you're going to post on Blue Sky, you're going to be encouraged very quickly to include alt text. And that for us is going to be a big part of the transcript. If you're going to do it anyway, and I will argue that there are some people who say that that's a ethical use for artificial intelligence, is you can plug your comic in and have it generate a transcript. You can decide about that, how you feel when it comes to that issue. But I have heard some people say it, that it's an ethical use for AI. One way or the other, a transcript is a really good first start. And on the typical webcomics website, you're going to have your comic and a little space for a blog underneath. I think that's a good idea, that blog. And one of the main reasons that I think you can use that is to plug your transcript down there.
I'm going to be honest. I'll tell on myself. When I first made the move from Twitter to Blue Sky, and there was sort of a culture of shaming if you don't have alt text. And I, just being entitled, I took umbrage with it. I was like, how dare you? I've been putting comics online for 25 years. Don't tell me what I have to do. And I went to it very slowly. I'm just telling on myself that I wasn't a willing, what do you call it? Like happy clappy, like I'm going to do the right thing here in terms of putting alt text on. No, I was a son of a bitch about it. I was like, God damn it, I don't want to do alt text. I just spent hours creating this comic. I don't want to do alt text. And then I went through the stage of like, who is using this? Who needs this? Who actually is looking for alt text and like is hard of vision? And then slowly, I will say my heart melted a little bit. I was like, no, this is the right thing to do. I should do alt text. And now I will say that we have incorporated it into our process, Beth and I. And Beth does the transcripts of it, and we put it on Blue Sky when we post. We put it on Patreon. And we put it on the website itself. I think we do it, Brad, as hidden alt text that the spider can pick up, but that the average world doesn't. And you're right. Maybe we should make it visible on the blog. It certainly hurts nothing. But all that being said is, now that I have finally broken off of my umbrage and like, how dare you ask me to do alt text kind of thing, I see it actually has tremendous value in like both outreach for people who might be hard of vision or potentially blind, or blind adjacent is probably a better way to say it. And then for SEO and for people that just want to have it. Completely separate from SEO for outreach, it has also helped me when I need to find a comic in my own damn archive. So it has three purposes for me. Brad, just out of curiosity, did you have the same umbrage when alt text came about on Blue Sky? No.
Have we just met? Of course. Somebody was telling me how to do what I'm doing. Of course I had umbrage. And the same thing, I came around to it slowly. And being the devious little bastard I was, when I first started doing it, I put little notes in there like, hey, is anybody actually even reading this shit? And guess what? But every now and again, somebody would pop up and say, "Oh yeah, really? I'm reading this."
Because I'm still not convinced that anyone uses it for me. But
didn't happen often. But every now and again, it's just enough to make me think. Nah. And also, like, I heard from somebody who said that they sometimes have problems understanding, not just with my work, but with comics in general. They had a hard time understanding what the joke was, or whether they were missing subtext, or whether they were missing social.
There is completely separate from vision problems. There are people that have contextual vision and word problems in terms of understanding. And that's why I said, like, for me, it was a sense of entitlement. Like, I just didn't step outside of my own experience enough to be like, oh, this is a valid reason why people would want this. Sure. And I'm just telling on myself, my own smallness. So and you had the same, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I for the most part, I do it. There are some times when I put a placeholder in there with the idea of, okay, I can't do this now, but I'll do it later. Because now I've kind of gone all in on Blue Sky, and I'm posting between 60 and 90 times a week using a scheduler. Well, I can't keep up with all of that. Right? So sometimes I'll put in just a note there with as little as I can with the idea of, okay, Monday morning, I'm going to get in and clean some of that up. Every now and again, one gets through that I didn't get to. But in general, I'm trying to do that just out of because I can see where it's good for the people reading, and not for nothing, I can see the benefits for myself.
Yeah. And so I'm going to suggest to you as a friend a little mnemonic you can use when you need to be reminded to go back and finish the alt text.
Yeah.
Is that anytime you hear, you go and do the alt text. That's your way of...
That'll be my cue.
Yeah.
Time to do the alt text.
Do you have a name in your own mind for the rooster, by the way?
No, I need to name the rooster. You're absolutely right. I don't know why the term bandy rooster comes up. I don't know whether it was like a bandy music rooster lyric from Oklahoma or something, but I always think of him as my bandy rooster.
By the way, I made the mistake of listening to Oklahoma the other day, and holy hell, those songs stick in your head.
Oh, I know.
Oklahoma holds up. It holds up all right. All right,
it's a great musical.
To finish the topic, so yes, I absolutely co-sign with Brad. Alt text, for me, that actually is the big swing with SEO is alt text. Yeah. Brad, I'm sure will have more, but for me, alt text is the big swing that you can do on a daily and incremental basis to keep your website both usable for the broadest swath of folks, usable for you in terms of your own search, and usable for SEO in terms of expanding how your website is spidered.
That was the big thing for me is when I realized, because of course, everything we do as independent cartoonists, if you do it once, it's got to be usable in a number of ways.
Yes.
Otherwise, we can't.
Because we have a limited time and resources to do a thing.
It's a time management thing. So once I realized that I could get SEO and usability out of that transcript, it became a regular part of what I was doing.
Yeah.
So here's a couple other tips on improving your website's SEO. You can optimize your image metadata. And of course, Dave talked about putting that alt text into the image file itself. Also, just something as easy, my typical naming convention is the date using European format, which is year, month, date, right? So it's 2025. 04 30 would be April 30th, 2025. And then I just got a little tag at the end that says evil. After that, now don't put it in the beginning because you want those numbers in the beginning because that's going to be the main thing that's going to keep your archives organized, right? Is that date. And that's why I use year, month, date, not the other way around, because that's going to, that lines right up for me. But at the end, you could put a couple words there that indicate what the comic was about. For example, 2025, 04, 03, evil, underscore shark meeting. Just a couple of words, doesn't have to be a lot, just to give kind of a basic overview of what that comic was about. That can help in your SEO improvement as well.
I think everyone wants to know, what the hell was Shark Meeting about? What the...
That was when there was a meeting and somebody said the wrong thing and somebody pushed a button and they went down a trap door. Okay. And of course there were sharks underneath.
You know what? That actually makes more sense now. Yeah. All right. I saw that going 10,000 different ways. I didn't know where Shark Meeting, because given the context of Evil Inc., it could have been sharks that were supervillains having a meeting. It could have been, anyway, I've
had that too. I've had sharks with two legs that walked around on the land. They were like mobsters that were.
I mean, that's sort of the joy of writing a superhero, supervillain comic world, is that you could absolutely have that in the background or as a storyline So yes, I would co-sign with Brad. I don't do that myself, but boy, actually, no, you know what we do? We have started doing that with the comics that we specifically format for social media. Beth has actually taken to doing that. So yes, we do that as I'm using a very royal we in the sense that I'm not doing it, but Beth is doing it. Thank God. So yes, I will co-sign that.
Yeah. And of course, when I was looking up some other sources that had suggestions, I saw this that I'll pass along, that things like your about page, a character guide with bios, a story arc index, a start here page for new readers.
A start here page,
all of that stuff is good for the SEO of your website as well.
Yeah.
And those are all stuff that we've traditionally encouraged people to do.
And a Start Here page can include something just as simple as a paragraph that describes all the key themes, key words, key ideas, key concepts. Or it could be, the introductory paragraph, character introductions that are 1 to 2 sentences long, sort of gives you a broad scope of the thing. 1 or 2 sentences on the setting, and then now here you go. Let's take you to the first comic in the archives. That simple about page gives a lot of context to the spider about how to contextualize your website within the wider internet. So yeah, big cosign on that one as well. Brad, good job on that.
And just think about it again. Do it once, use it 100 times. You're going to write a little paragraph when if you're like me, I'm doing a long form comic. So every time I wrap up a chapter, I do an e-comic that I put out on like Drive-Through Comics and so forth.
Right.
Well, that's got to come with a paragraph that is like, this is everything that happens in this storyline. Well, that's keyword rich, right? So having a page for that on your website, hey, take a look at this comic. Maybe it links out to Drive-Through where they can buy it, right? And of course, external links are important for SEO as well as links internally among your own website. But getting into the habit of making a page for each time you do a new e-comic where you repurpose all of that keyword-rich wording, it's just a page, no skin off your nose, but it's going to help bring people in through search engines. So I could see that being helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more, it's just one more that I'll throw out at you. Our question asker talked about Yoast SEO, which is a plugin, very popular plugin that I use on my website
for WordPress. And
yep. And every time I update a comic, Yoast has a little section there for page titles and meta descriptions. And that's another place, that meta description. If you never touch it, it just puts in, whatever you put in when you first set up the plugin, and it just kind of gives it that same sentence over and over again, which isn't doing you much good.
Right.
But if you got into the habit, every time you upload a new comic, of putting just a couple of sentences, that's what this comic is about. So-and-so meets so-and-so for the first time. They meet and they have an ice cream social, and then they go to work at the steel mill.
Ice cream social? Work at the steel mill?
Yes. Well,
Brad, is this comic set in 1925? Is this set in 1925?
Actually, you'd think that it'd cool you down. Back when I worked in Canton, Ohio, for the newspaper there, they had done stories with steel workers before the steel industry kind of was uprooted.
Yeah.
And those guys that worked the steel furnaces, they said their secret for keeping cool: hot coffee. The idea was to make their internal temperature a little bit warmer than the external temperature, and it would feel cool.
That might just be breathing in steel fumes a little bit too much. No, actually, I know that that's true, because the same concept is also true in the Middle East in terms of drinking hot tea and drinking hot coffee. Hot drinks, basically, to balance out the. So yeah, that's I love that ice cream social and working at the steel mill was your go-to. That was great. As they vote for Warren G. Harding.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, maybe I'm just getting snacky over here, getting ready for lunch. But yeah, those are my main ones. There's other things you can do, of course. Anything that you do to optimize your site speed is great. Make your site load more quickly. Anything that you do to encourage sharing is a wonderful thing to help out. Again, linking outwards from your comics, other sites that link in. Oh, we should take a quick second just as we're wrapping this up, because it's starting to happen again. Remember in the early days of webcomics, we used to get these come-ons from people saying, hey, I'd love to write an article for your blog. Or they'd say, sometimes, I would just like...
Boy, that never ended for me. For the last 25 years, I get at least 3 of those emails a week. Yeah, but keep going.
There was a long time I wasn't getting them. I'm getting them again. And
you know why? Because your SEO got better. That's why you're getting them again. Yeah.
But and sometimes you'll see somebody, I'll give you, $200. All you got to do is link to my website. That all is an SEO racket as well.
Yeah.
They're really not offering you free content for your web or like $200 for a link. Really, they're trying to game their SEO by using your website.
Right.
Just as a general rule, these are all rackets. They're all come-ons, and you should not participate in them.
And one of the reasons why that works is any website that does have an SEO standing, a link out to another website does actually matter to the spider.
Yeah.
Like it actually, that does have value. So one of the reasons why Brad and I say, and you should do what I say, not what I do, is you should have a couple of links to other webcomics that you truly love and admire and want to see do well in the world. The hope being that we are all a rising tide that lifts one another's boats. Boy, that kind of breaks as a metaphor. But you get where I'm saying with that, was that we should be linking out to one another or to other webcomics that deserve it, because that can help one another out. In the sense that we can be the juice that, I hate the link juice as a phrase, we can be the link juice that feeds one another's audiences. So yes, absolutely on that front, absolutely.
Yeah, that's our basics on SEO. But just in general, I'm so happy to see that we got that question, because it means people are taking this website thing serious, and I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, and also I will just put one caveat, as Patrick rightly pointed out at the beginning of their question. The SEO can help. The SEO can nudge things along, but what really nudges things along is having a good comic. And I know we come back to that a lot, but it's just worth reiterating at the end of this. SEO can do a little nudge, do a little zhuzh on potentially people finding it, but how people truly find things is friends directing them and you directing them, and the comic being good enough to be directed to. Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
Oh my goodness, do you hear that? It's that familiar music. It can only mean one thing. My friends, prepare your chakras and center your vibes, because entering the Comic Lab studio on a radiant beam of self-belief and highly flammable essential oils, it's the one and only Susan MacTaggart.
Oh, Bradley John! Oh, Bradley John, how you do go on? Ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Susan MacTaggart, author of the new book, Collection of Affection, Perfection in Every Direction. Oh, it's so lovely to see you, Bradley John. It's so lovely to see you.
It's good to see you too, Susan. As you know, you are here every week to provide a weekly personal affirmation for one lucky $10 Patreon backer.
Yes, Bradley John, and I see you're here to display the newest discount rack from Old Navy. Everything's working, Bradley John. It's all working.
Yes. Oh, you got me with that one. I'm a little bit unprepared. I closed my tab.
Oh, Bradley,
can you do the
I'm going to tell you a little bit of life advice. Always keep your tabs open, Bradley.
Oh my goodness.
Always keep them open. They're so vital, so important.
Your tab should be like your mind. You always keep it open.
Yes, Bradley, yes. But unlike your front door, you do want to keep that closed. The world's a little dangerous out there, sweetheart. It's a little dangerous. So, Bradley, who was the name that we're sending an affirmation to this week?
I'm so glad you asked, because I just got my tab open back up. And the name of that lucky person is Jim Kessler.
Jim Kessler. Jimmy. Can I call you Jimmy? I can call you Jimmy. It's one of my favorite things on ice cream. Get those Jimmys on there. Bradley, do you get Jimmys? Do you get Jimmys on your ice cream?
Yes, on the East Coast we call them Jimmies. In the Midwest they're called Sprinkles, and you can always tell where you are on whether they're called Jimmies or Sprinkles.
That's because the Midwest is a deeply, deeply broken region, Bradley. They're called Jimmies. Okay, so Jimmy, let's turn to you. Oh, my little sweetheart, my little love. I want to tell you your personal affirmation for today. And Jimmy, it's this. A bad day, Jimmy, does not equal a bad life. A bad day does not equal a bad life. Remember that, Jimmy. Hold it close to your heart and wear it proudly like Bradley wears those $3 discount Old Navy jeans that he has on. Bradley John, they're working. They're working, Bradley John.
Thank you so much, Susan. A bad day does not equal a bad life. That's actually a very good personal affirmation. I like
thank you.
that.
Bradley's taking that one to heart, unlike most of my advice. And do keep an eye out on Barnes & Noble for a collection of affection, perfection in every direction. The new book by Susan MacTaggart. Your affirmation queen, Bradley John. I will see you next week. And Jimmy, I will see you on the ice cream of life.
Well, there she goes, vanishing into a cloud of sandalwood and raw ambition. Thank you, Susan MacTaggart, for another soul-fortifying affirmation and for reminding us all that success is just a vision board away, assuming you don't get bored with your vision. She's gone. Dave, you missed her again.
I listen for the music. That's when I know when I can walk back into the studio. It's just a cloud of perfume, a cloud of perfume.
Now that we've had our Susan MacTaggart moment, we've got a few updates to share with our listeners.
We do. And the big one that I want to share with first is this coming Reuben weekend for the National Cartoonist Society. Your delightful host, Bradley Geiger, will be there with his lesser co-host, David Kellett. We're going to be doing what is now, I guess, our third annual podcast panel talk at the National Cartoonist Society Reuben weekend this year in Boston. And I believe, depending on when the airing of this show comes out, there should still be tickets and slots available if you would like to come attend the Reuben weekend. I have to say that, especially under the current board and presidency of Karen Evans of Luann, the doors have been thrown open wide in terms of welcoming all sorts of folks from all sorts of backgrounds of comics. Yeah. So it is a great time, if you have been thinking about it, to join the NCS. Bradley, what are your thoughts on co-hosting the panel talk?
I cannot
with
wait.
Your lesser host, Dave Kellett there.
What is this lesser stuff coming from?
I don't know. I need Susan to come give me an affirmation. That's what I need.
You need an affirmation. I think so. I know. I'm excited. August 14th through the 16th, and we are going to have a blast. The last couple ones that we did were just knockout successes. We had some really fantastic conversations, and it's something that has gotten better and better with each passing year. I cannot wait to get up there and do it again in August.
And, you know, it's not only a chance to come see the panel talk. It is a chance to meet and greet all of your pros and heroes and peers that you love in cartooning, including Brad Geiger and his lesser co-host.
Honest
to God, if you're on the fence about it, what a great time. And you're on the East Coast especially, and it's an easy trip for you. This is a great year to jump in and try it out. I love the Reuben weekend. I love being able to hang out with Brad Geiger. And honestly, some of the most fabulous panel talks that we've ever done have been at these NCS weekends. So check it out.
Absolutely. And our next update, some good news for those of us crowdfunding on places like patreon.com. Apple's loss in court is our gain. Apple lost a court case, Epic versus Apple, in April 30th. That means that Apple is no longer allowed to collect fees on purchases made outside the App Store.
Yes.
And man, Patreon was on that like immediately, like a rooster on a grub.
They wasted no time on that one.
They put out a message saying that this ruling means creators will have a way to get paid by U.S. fans on Patreon's iOS app without Apple taking 30% of the in-app payments. It's a huge win. Patreon says that they immediately put an update to their app in. All they're waiting is for it to get approved by Apple. I'm sure Apple is working very diligently to make sure that happens as quickly as possible. But sooner or later, that update is going to come out, and we can stop worrying about Apple tacking on 30%
Yes.
to our Patreon pledges that come in through the iOS app.
Yeah, I will say that even as a fan of Apple, I don't hate it when a $1 trillion company takes it on the chin in a legal ruling. And this one was one where it frankly just chapped my ass that they were going after this fee. This is just to put this in a broader context for folks on Patreon. Because every, I would say 6 to 18 months, there is some kerfuffle that gets everybody upset. And there's a subsection of percentage of people that get so upset that they leave Patreon, they storm off or this or that. And I have found over almost 10 years now that I've been Patreon, a lot of these problems tend to get fixed, again, within a 6 to 18 month window. If you just take a beat and say, all right, I'm not the only one that this is affecting. Other people see that this is a problem. And in this case, the court actually ruled in a way that helped us. There have been other times where Patreon was self-correcting on their own corporate leadership way. So just a note that rather than taking rash action and storming off of Kickstarter or storming off of Patreon, usually when you encounter a problem with these that is significant enough that it makes you angry, it's also significant enough that it's making the overall populace angry enough that they are going to fix it. Yeah. So I know, Brad, you've had that sort of policy yourself with 100%.
Patreon. And it's something that, again, when you go out on social media and you say, Patreon's horrible, they're a bunch of crooks and they're terrible people, what happens next is Patreon usually fixes the problem or the other, Kickstarter has been in this position too. So, it's not just Patreon. But then that entity fixes the problem, and then you've got to go out with your hat in your hand next week saying, "Hey, you could join me at the Patreon for the $5 tier, and wouldn't it be nice?" And you're going to have a hard sell there if you've been spending weeks telling people how terrible Patreon is, and now you're going to try and go back as if nothing ever happened.
Remember how I totally shit-talked Patreon?
Yeah.
Hey, how'd you like to join Patreon?
So it's in your best interest. Now, listen, you can send Patreon an angry note through their support. You can do a number of things. I've been wrestling with Patreon for well over a month on something that I'd really wish they would fix, and believe me, they can get very frustrating to deal with. Yeah. But you've never heard me say anything on public on that. It's very rare that I would do something like that. Keep your head about you. Keep your head about you, because you're going to be crowdfunding with these guys pretty soon.
Yeah. And honestly, Patreon had described, what's the best way to say it? They had described a path for which we were supposed to explain to Patreon, like, hey, or patrons, hey, maybe join me on the website, not on Patreon. I'll be honest, it was such confusing language to try to ask someone to do it that I just said, shine it. I'll take the loss in the short term, because I knew it was going to get fixed eventually with this court case. And so I just took the loss, because sometimes the marketing communication can be so convoluted that it doesn't gain you anything to do the jump through the hoops. But anyway, that being said, the problem is now fixed for the short term, at least, until Apple comes up with a new way to charge that fee. And so kudos to the court system for fixing that problem for us. So that's great.
Absolutely.
And Brad, before we move on to our topic, one last update that I should say. I also now want to give a shout out to Superfan Ray Michels, who very kindly updated my Wikipedia page after 10 years of no one touching it. And now, as a result of Ray updating my page, a bunch of other people have jumped in to help out, I noticed, too.
Oh, really?
So, well, I don't want to say a bunch. I do. Even one other person is helpful. But
after you've been asking help for assistance for years and years, and then somebody comes in, and then anybody else that comes after that, it feels like a bunch.
Honestly, though, the Wikipedia page, it makes sense now. The things are cohesive. The facts all line up. Everything has citations. It's great. So I just want to say thank you to Ray. And genuinely, this is one of those things where kindness will come out of the woodwork and surprise you on the line online when you've been giving away your webcomic for free. There is genuine kindness like Ray's that will send a kindness back. And so I always appreciate that when that happens. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you to Superfan Ray Michels. And now, Dave, another question from one of our $5 Patreon backers at patreon.com/comiclab. And this comes in from Dan Bethel, who says the following. I'm a professor of composition and...
A what?
Composition.
No, what was his role? What was his job?
He's a professor.
A professor. Okay. You're going to enjoy that when you listen back to what you actually said.
What did I say?
I think you said professor. Are you a professor?
A professor?
A professor.
He may be a professional professor.
Well, let's get Brad's teeth back in so we can finish that sentence.
Crying out loud.
Get the dentures back in.
I am a professor of composition and rhetoric at the local state university, and I get the occasional artsy student that perks up when they hear I also make comics. It's always fun to share art and storytelling advice, but then it can get awkward when the question over what degree they should earn comes up. So, what would your ideal art degree look like for a cartoonist or a comic artist in terms of classes and opportunity? How should the balance be between craft and business? How early should business be introduced? What kind of progression should there be? Thank you so much. I love the show, Dan B. So, Dave, we've talked about this just a few weeks ago in a show called I Have a Useless Degree and I Love It. We talked about how if we were encouraging someone to go to college and concentrate on comic art and cartooning, we told them that art would actually be kind of lower down on the list than writing and business. But if you were designing a comics BFA, we'll call it.
Yep.
Right? A BFA with an emphasis in comics. What kind of classes would you want to make sure were part of that list?
This is such a fun question. I don't know that we have ever tried to work out what would be on that course list. But can I, just as a quick side note, can I ask you, how excited are you that a professor of rhetoric has written into the show? Because Brad has been going on a deep dive on the art of effective and persuasive writing. And so did you light up as like a Christmas tree when you saw that he was a professor?
As soon as I saw rhetoric, well, it was a little 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. 6 of like, oh my gosh, I in 2025.
Talk about rhetoric.
I didn't know that those classes existed anymore. I always thought of a class in rhetoric.
I sort of think of it as like 1880 to 1920 is when rhetoric was taught. Yeah.
So it excited me to see that there was somebody out there teaching a class in that. And now it's like, okay, I wonder if the local community college has a class in rhetoric and what it would take to teach that class. But then I got self-conscious because I'm like, I wonder if he heard that episode and whether I would have gotten a passing mark in my comments on rhetoric. You know, like I hope I said smart stuff.
Yeah, I wonder from a historical perspective, and I've never thought about this until now, I wonder if rhetoric faded as a course of study because Mussolini and Hitler had used rhetoric so effectively mid-century that people were like, maybe we stop teaching this. maybe we cool it on the rhetoric. Or maybe from a capitalist perspective, rhetoric transmogrified into marketing. I wonder if that's a way of looking at it historically.
If I'm being totally interested, my interest in rhetoric came from a conversation I was having with my father-in-law about a fascist politician who will not name here, and he pointed me to this book that talked about the use of rhetoric in that particular person's wheelhouse, and that sent me down the rabbit hole. It's exactly where it came from for me.
Yeah, I mean, populists and nationalists always tend to lean on rhetoric as far as the emotional triggers. And anyway, all right. So let's talk about the question at hand, which is designing a course for cartooning. Okay, so let's talk about this, Brad. In an average BA or BFA, how many course credits break down over a 4-year period? Just give me the number real quick.
That would be 120 credit hours for a 4-year degree.
120, so 3 credit hours on an average course. Some are 4, obviously, but 3.
So that's about 40 classes you got to take over the 4 years.
So about 40. So we're looking at 40 classes. Okay, so I'm gonna carve off a chunk right at the beginning that's for me low-hanging fruit, but least exciting for cartoonists to hear about, which is I would want them to take 2 business courses and maybe 3 if you include the math of business, which is separate from trigonometry, geometry, algebra, pre-calc, calc, all that sort of stuff. I think an artist's life could benefit, my own artist life could benefit by understanding things like invoicing and compounding interest and all this and that.
Yes.
So let's include 2 business courses. One probably on managing a small business and managing projects in terms of pricing, invoicing, quoting, all that sort of stuff. The second business course I would think would be operating as an independent freelance artist. And that could be for the people that need or want to go into freelancing on a for-hire basis, right? I think that those 2 business courses, I think, could be very useful. Would you add any other business courses separate from those onto this 40 courses that we're going to create?
There's one that I would throw in, and it would just be a little add-on to your math class, and that is analytics. I would want them to learn an intro to statistics, and just like nuts and bolts statistics, so that when they look at an analytic chart, they not only can they perceive it and interpret it, but like in a lot of cases, just my limited knowledge of analytics, half the time I look at these analytics that a social media platform gives me, and I notice what they're not showing me more than I notice what they're showing me, right? There's a lot of them that you can only go like 90 days back. You can't get a whole long view of your analytics, because if you ever did, you'd be, beside yourself, despondent with grief, if you looked at a long analysis. So they always keep you at like 3 months tops that they allow you to look at. And then they always show you certain types of analytics.
Yeah. I'll throw myself in that club, by the way. I get the numbers. But I don't grok the numbers. You know what I mean? Like, do you know the word grok? Is that? Yep. So I get the numbers, but I don't grok them. And so I agree with Brad that kind of statistical analysis and understanding would be really helpful in my own background.
Yeah.
So maybe, Brad, we would construct some kind of math course, like even just one semester, about math for independent business or math for independent artists operating a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I could see over the course of a semester, we could have statistics, we could have business finance, we could have basic compounding of money over time. Things that someone could use on a day-to-day basis for their business. So yeah, I agree with you on that. So we basically have. We're in the ballpark with each other in terms of math and business courses, so that's good.
And I would also add like branding for creators. The more, especially this year, has been on my mind. I would want a business course in branding for these young people, and a legal course, legal issues for business.
Oh, God, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
A 101 course for the legality of contracts and copyrights and trademarks and the entering in of agreements between artists, and projects worked on together. I would co-sign that. Would you see that as one course or a full year of 2 courses?
I'd see that. I think one course, because I think one course. If you just focus for a semester on branding and just focus laser sharp on that, you'd get a really good start.
I got to tell you, there's a couple of really world-class universities in LA, and it has not gone unthought in my brain that I would love to just audit a course and this or that.
Yeah.
I would love to do a 101 in art law. That would be interesting. So anytime I get to talk to Katie McConis, it's so wonderful to talk art and law. So yes, I fully co-sign that course as well.
And also, you'd want to build in a little bit of time for like an internship or a mentorship for that. You could build that, but that would be a lot of the business classes that I would want to see somebody to take. Okay. Also, not for nothing, every now and again, we get people asking us to talk about grant writing and stuff like that. And it's not really our wheelhouse, but doing pitches for publishers and navigating grant writing. We do know that there are people out there doing that. Right. And that wouldn't be a terrible thing to throw into the business side of the curriculum.
The art, I have to say, the few artists that I've met in my life that have cracked the nut of grant writing, it's not the worst thing in the world. They do have to spend a fair amount of time on writing the grants, but especially Canadian pals that have figured out how to get their regional and provincial grants going for them. Boy, they do all right by it. So, it's definitely worth it. So, okay, now let's move into, Brad, coursework on writing, on literature, and on the written word.
Yeah.
What would you propose for that? And I think we'll finish off with art classes, yeah?
Yeah, sure. I would definitely do a creative writing for comics class. Specifically for comics, that would be...
Okay, I agree with you, but I see that as sort of a 301 class rather than a 101 class.
Yeah,
like they've done their basic writing, they've done their basic literature, and now they're going to 301 writing for comics, right? Yeah, okay.
I would do composition and rhetoric, or composition and rhetoric.
Is that if you're a professor? If you're a professor
that's
of
for
rhetoric?
those professors out there.
Yeah, that's right.
I would want a class in rhetoric. And actually I've got in my list here 2 creative writing classes for comics.
I love it if our designed rhetoric class is like rhetoric for non-nationalists. That's what it is.
Yeah, to use it for good, please. A class on narrative structure and writing, or narrative structure and pacing, would be a class that I'd like.
Yep.
Also, I would want character development and dialogue, just a class that focused in on those 2 things, character development and dialogue, and how those 2 things intersect. What about you? What would you want for a business or for a writing class for comics artists?
I mean, honestly, if I were able to pick up and plop down 15 to 18 credits from like the University of Iowa or Yale's writing program, or frankly, any really good writing program in the US, and just take 15 or 18 credits of whatever they're doing and plop that into this program, that's kind of what I would do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I would see what I was doing or Yale is doing. I'm trying to think of good writing colleges around the country. Carnegie Mellon does a nice writing program. And just kind of take whatever they're doing, 18 credits worth, and plop that down. And then I would kind of have, well, maybe not 18, maybe 12 to 15 on writing and literature. Because honestly, I do feel like you do need a basis on, if not the great book series, at least some kind of series that is a survey literature class that gives you like, this is how the greats did it. This is why Shakespeare did what he did. This is why, I don't know, Heinlein or Tolkien or any sort of science fiction writer did what they did. This is why these great authors went down this path. And so I do think a good literature survey class, if not 6 credits, at least 3 credits, can sort of introduce you to the great books that you, if you can't get to all of them in the coursework, you at least introduce your students that these are ones that you should jump into at some point in your life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would want, once you get into the 300 level, I would want one course just on writing humor, just that focused. Even if you're not going to be a humor writer, you can learn so much about writing from learning how humor works.
I mean, can I be honest? In a perfect world, though, I would have that be a writing course that's both a writer's room, but also an improv class. I would bring in somebody from UCB or Groundlings or Second City if we were in one of those cities. I don't know what the improv groups in New York are, but anyway, you get where I'm going with this, is that the ability to be both funny on the fly and funny with planning, like those 2 tracks are really important for a writing life. And so, big cosign on that idea, Brad.
And then on the other side, I would want a class on long form storytelling, specifically with an eye towards serialization. How do you tell a long form story in updates, in serial moments, right? Whether that's updates on a website, or whether that's chapters of a book, or whether that's floppies that get developed into a graphic novel. I want to talk about just how to tell storytelling that it's a long story that you're putting out in chunks.
What a great idea. Like you look at the late Victorians like Arthur Conan Doyle or Dickens and see how they delivered in chunks, or you look at Stan Lee and Kirby and how they delivered in chunks, or you look at Chris Claremont and how he delivered in chunks. That's a great idea for a class, by the way, serialization of fiction. Yeah. I really like that.
And that's everything pretty much that's on my list. Do you have any other writing ideas or class ideas that you'd want to throw under writing?
No, but I mean, I could conceivably see, like, let's say if we're designing this course, I could see a writing for marketing class or writing for
copywriting.
That could be some, copywriting, which I did for 8 or 9 years at Mattel. Copywriting is a really distinctive skill and completely separate from creative writing. It's much more utilitarian, much more has a goal in mind and is going to get there. Right. Versus sometimes the more artistic path that pure fiction can take. Okay, so now let's switch to art, to mark making on a page, on a canvas, in a sculpture. What would you propose, Brad? I think is now 12 to 18 credits we're roughly left with and by the way, students obviously can lean more heavily on writing in their choices and artists in their choices, but let's say we have 12 to 18 credits left to allot to drawing and write and mark making. What would you do?
I think freshman year, you're doing intro to visual storytelling, where you're going to learn all of those, learn how to place a word balloon correctly, learn how to do panel composition, all of those things you get right off the bat.
So as a 101, is that also advertising and poster design and in terms of balancing words and pictures?
Maybe, but I would want to really laser focus in on comics specifically, because there's a lot that is going on there on that page, and we see it all the time. Yeah. Right? That you really do need to learn how to get that word balloon placed right, how to compose that panel correctly so that it does right. We see so many problems that come right down to just people don't understand the visual storytelling of comics. I would want a semester just devoted to that.
I listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think the only quibble I would have is that I would see before you do that, a 101 class in the history of mixed communication of word and picture. And why did why at Agincourt did they have words sewn into fabric along with pictures? And, unlike the Bayeux Tapestry and stuff. And why did the Egyptians have both an iconographic and pictographic system of communication on the walls, and you go through why humans have mixed pictures and words together. The Japanese have a beautiful history of mixing the two together. And why did some paintings eschew that? And why did some lean in on it in Western art? And so I don't know. I think a 101 course that surveys how we got here in terms of the why and the hows of what we do with print and with mixing words and pictures. I think that could be helpful. And you probably agree with that, I'm thinking.
No, as a matter of fact, you and I are thinking with the same brain. I've got that under general ed instead of art. So I've got like a media studies that I would pitch as general ed, and art history for comics artists under general ed. That would have a lot of that same stuff that you're talking about there. Just the history of comics art would be very telling, I think.
And I would describe it as history of the mixed media of words and pictures, rather than not. It's sort of a precursor to comics before the Italians and Hogarth started to mix the two to create comics.
You'd also need a digital tools class. Right. A class
intro to digital tools. Interesting.
Not only like teaching things like Clip Studio and Adobe Photoshop, but teaching file management, the CMYK versus RGB, high res versus low res, file prep management, all that stuff. I would want in a digital tools class.
I wouldn't disagree with that. Again, the quibble would be I would create it as an intro to mark making class by saying here are the 10 physical analog tools you can use to make a mark in ink, right? You can use a quill, you can use a brush, you can use a nib, you can use, you get where I'm going with there. And then here's the 4 or 5 current ways to make digital marks. You can use a Wacom, you can use an iPad, you can use a phone with a tiny little pen, although no one would ever want to do that. Just basically give a survey of this is all the ways to do it, because some people, until they're introduced to it, they don't know that it's even out there. I at 51 years old, just this past week, found a pen online that does automatic stippling. It's energy driven. So you hold the pen and it goes brrr, and it stipples for you. And so I just created my first, I don't know how to describe it, battery powered stipple drawing. And first of all, it took fucking forever. I'm never going to do it again. But at age 51, I finally figured out that there was an electronic stipple pen. I didn't even know that existed, you know?
Thank goodness this exists. Get it the fuck out of my studio.
Get it the hell away from me. I'm never using this SOB again. No, but it was worth the $15 to try it, because you should always be trying things. And that's what a college could do for you, is introduce you to what's out there. So yes, I agree with you on an intro to drawing and mark making class. Yeah.
I would spend at least one semester just talking about lettering and typography.
Oh,
just those.
Oh my God.
Those pursuits, understanding lettering, understanding just
imagine a class taught by Nate Picos or taught by, I mean, there's 3 or 4 people out there that could just do an amazing job.
Yep. I would include that. Later on, I would do like a 300 level on panel layout and visual flow, kind of like taking that first class and really barreling down on it, because it is so important.
Yeah.
Understanding composition. Again, catching up on all the people who didn't.
Imagine a whole semester of that. I would love that. I would take that class now.
Yes. I would love just focusing on lettering.
Yeah. Well, no, not lettering, but panel layout. Like just a couple of weeks on Eisner, a couple of weeks on, I'm thinking of some of the people that have done layout wonderfully.
Yeah.
Chris Ware so fun.
Would be a part of that conversation.
Who?
Chris Ware.
Yeah. No, you have to. Even though I'm not a Ware fan, beautiful layout, absolutely stunning layout.
You got to look at that layout. Yeah,
absolutely stunning layout. Yeah, I want to take this course now. Okay, yeah, keep going.
I would want an art course that just talked about comics on the web, right? With vertical scroll, paying attention to how people are using the spaces between panels on webtoons. I think that's worth paying attention to, that user experience.
And this would feed off of our 101 course. We were talking about, look, the reason why Peanuts was originally 4 equal squares was because the limitations of print. And so it could be stacked, it could be dropped, it could be horizontal. The reason why Webtoons does this is because the world has gone to a phone system. And so, I 100% agree with you, Brad. That kind of class is great.
And that pretty much was on my art list. All I've got left is kind of some writing and general ed. I didn't mention a storytelling class. And of course, since I spent so much time teaching storytelling, I had to have a storytelling class in there.
Right.
But, and some other general ed. Let's see.
I would have
like
one
an intro to media studies.
I'm gonna throw colorblind folks like myself under the bus and say, I want at least one course on color theory, color management. Mood management across the story. I mean, one of the things that Pixar does so well is color management for mood across the story. You know, like they do their whole color mood boards, for a film in large part as they're designing scenes. And I find it really effective, even as a colorblind person, how Pixar does it. So that kind of thing should be taught as a single course, I think.
Yep. And just the basics of coloring in terms of like flatting. Right?
Trapping. All this sort of stuff. Yes. Yeah.
All of those issues could be in a comics coloring course.
Yeah. Separation for color management. All that sort of stuff. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, and somewhere in there should be a pre-press course, preparing your stuff for pre-press. That's
okay. Now
I'm
going to extend our imaginary 4-year course for cartoonists and say that I would want really heavy placement in the first or second semester of your 4th year for an internship in a studio with a cartoonist, with a comics maker, with a graphic novelist, because it can not dissuade, but it can wipe away a lot of the bad assumptions that people would have about how much time we spend drawing versus business, versus admin, versus writing, versus marketing, versus, you know what I mean? Like, seeing the day to day, I think will be really eye-opening for a lot of young artists that are at the college level about what is needed to make an independent career in comics.
Yeah. I'm not going to go through it on the show. I will throw it into the show notes. I got a wild hair this week, and I actually wrote up a 4-year program, like the classes that I would have every semester, every year. Like if I actually were to build this, because it's also a fantasy of mine, Temple University or Villanova comes to me and say, hey, if you were to build a a degree just for cartoonists, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And so when I saw that question come in, and it's been like a fantasy for a while, I thought, okay, what if I were to actually think that through? I'll put it in the notes, in the show notes, and in the Patreon post as well. But my whole thing came up to be 25% art, 25% writing, 42% business, and between 8 to 10% general ed and electives.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that breakdown. I will say this, that when Brad's kids are in college now, and my kids will be out of college in less than a decade.
Yeah.
When that happens, Brad, you can bet, because SCAD in the past has asked me to be a professor down at the Savannah College Art and Design, and I couldn't do it because it's just life wasn't at the right point. But you can bet your bippy that I'm going to tell my wife, hey, you go teach a TV writing class, and I'll teach a comics class, and let's go down to SCAD for a semester and just live in Savannah. And then I'm going to be like, hey, let's go up to RISD. We'll live in Rhode Island. Rhode Island's delightful. You teach a TV writing class. I'll teach a comics class. I think it would be delightful to teach comics in my third act of my life. You know, I haven't wanted to do it right now. You're better at that than I am. But I think in my third act, as a way of doing sort of an adventure, I would go to Yale or Iowa to teach a graphic novel class, or go to SCAD or RISD and teach a in-depth comics class. I think that'd be super fun.
How could you not? How could you not? Just all of the energy that you would immerse yourself in.
Yeah.
You know, I can tell you from firsthand experience, just those storytelling classes that I taught, and the story structure classes. When you get in there and you start bouncing around ideas from people who, and part of it is, it's kind of your job to get them uninhibited.
Right.
You've got to create a space where they feel safe to be a little bit nutty. You know, but once they unleash their creativity, I would go home Monday nights after teaching 2 classes, and you can ask my wife. I would come in, lay down under the bed, and pass out because I had nothing left. You know, I was like done. Because it was all hell's a popping. For 6 hours of teaching those 2 classes. I came back, it was done. And then I'd wake up the next morning just ready to conquer the world.
Yeah. And so for me, I separate from the teaching joy, which I think you have shown me in your own life, my wife and I see it as an excuse to just go live in a place for 6 months. Like, we very much want to do that, where we're like, we live in New York for 6 months. We live in Savannah for 6 months. We live in London for 6 months. We live in, wherever. So what I'm saying is, I'm saying this out loud to SCAD because they've asked a couple times. Keep asking, because at some point I am going to say yes to a professorship for a semester or a trimester, whatever you guys do. I think it would be super fun. And Brad, imagine if we both did it at the same time. Wouldn't that be PAL times?
Yes. Oh, I was just going to say,
PAL times down at SCAD for.
I would do PAL times at SCAD in a heartbeat. But also, you know, you mentioned all those cities that you'd want to live in. Would you come down to Philadelphia and live for 6 months?
I'm going to give that a hard no. Too many damn roosters in Philadelphia. I can't do it. That's a hard pass on me. I need my sleep. If a little SOB is going to yell at me at 6 a.m. to get out of bed, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Then there's nothing left for me but to say that you've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my delightful friend, Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com, the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the delightful co-host of the New Drawing Show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my close personal friend, Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another delightful co-host of the New Drawing Show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, and we know that you do, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, where we are burning up the podcast charts.
And Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/Comic Lab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Professor. All right. So speaking of pal times, because I have a lot of these, like my kids are in college fantasies about what I'm going to do at that point in my life. So we've talked about doing the RV trip around America.
Yeah.
If like Yale's writing program came and said, would you two co-teach a class on comics to our writing program?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be fun to co-teach a college level class on comics and graphic novels? And that'd be so fun to teach with you.
Just, I mean, and listen,
The
part of me
Laurel and
says,
Hardy act that we would have over the semester.
part of me says I would do it for Philadelphia Community College. I don't need Yale, but
Well, I'm just thinking in terms of like colleges that could afford 2 professors in one class,
Well, I like the idea. We would have to get tweed blazers with those elbow patches.
With the matching elbows, yes. We both get a pipe.
You'd have to take up smoking pipe. Absolutely.
Yep.
And we would absolutely kill during that class. We'd have the only class where you'd need a 2-drink minimum.